Hi guys, welcome to Decode Mains 2025, and this is Decoding Ethics of UPSC Mains 2025. As we had promised, at 5 o'clock we are releasing a video, that is the part 2, where we are going to write, you and I are going to write every question of ethics together. Now the PDF that I have used to write the answers, I have uploaded that PDF in the Telegram channel, and you can download it from my Telegram channel, and the link is in the description. More importantly, make sure that you write the answers along with me. Don't procrastinate and don't think that first I will see the videos and then I will write it tomorrow. Please don't do that. You have to write it with me in real time. Now, only if you write the answers in real time with me will you really understand how to bring the ethical language in this paper, how to recognize different ethical dilemma in different context, how to bring that ethical keywords, how to break the question into smaller parts, look at it from ethical perspective and put it back together, how to give a matured opinion that stands out in the paper of ethics, and more importantly, how to write ethically when the questions are being asked from social justice angle or governance angle. So you will learn all this only if you write the answers with me. So I hope that you people are ready, and I hope that you people have the pen and paper with you to start writing. Now just before we start off, one final request is, I've worked really hard to bring this program to all my student community across India. So I want you people to please share this video with as many people as possible, because that will keep me going for the next 2.5 months. And the second thing is, I want you to put in the comment section what was your feeling once you completed all the answers with me. I will be looking forward to those comments, because it is those comments that will keep me motivated to keep working so hard for my student community. Alright guys, I hope that you people are ready to write, so let us start off. Hi guys, welcome to the part 2 of the Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude paper of UPSC Mains 2025. I hope the first part was helpful, and I hope you understood the analysis, the trends of the ethics paper in Mains 2025, and also I hope you have noted down what should be your approach if you are preparing for the next year Mains of 2026. Now in this video, in the part 2 of Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude, we will go question by question, and in every question we will discuss the structure, we will discuss the demand of the question, and we will write down the answer exactly how it should be written down in the exam-like condition. We will try to bring the subject specific or paper specific language when we are writing the answer, and you are going to write along with me, and that is the difference. Take the paper, look at the question, write down the question and write the answer with me. When you write the answer with me, you will understand how to structure the answer when the question is given with multiple demands. You will also understand how to integrate the examples, and also make sure how those examples will look more relevant ethically rather than just giving a generic examples. So it is very pertinent that every question that you look at it, you should not only listen to it, but take a pen and start writing the answers with me. And that is the difference this time I am doing with Decode Mains 2025. Alright guys, so let us start off with the first question. We will read out the question, we will understand how to structure that question, and then we will start writing the answer. And I hope you people will write the answer along with me. So let us start off then. So the first question is 1A. In 1A, it reads that in the present digital age, social media has revolutionized our way of communication and interaction. However, it has raised several ethical issues and challenges. Describe the key ethical dilemmas in this regard. Now you should understand that this is a 10 marker and you will have 2 sides to write. Okay, so as I keep telling you, when you read the question, you should always create a schema. That schema will give you the framework of how to elaborate the answer. So if I have to put the schema for this question, now look at this. The first is, I will talk about the introduction. So in the introduction, I will talk about social media, how it can be a boon as well as how it can be a bane. Okay, so then I will give a context of how social media is posing ethical challenges, and then I will talk more about the ethical dilemma. The ethical dilemma that comes with social media. Okay, and finally we will conclude using Gandhiji's philosophy. Okay, so in Gandhiji's philosophy, what we can write is, we can talk about Gandhiji's quote of means as important as ends. And we can then connect that to social media, telling that if social media is guided by ethical means, then social media becomes the tool for empowerment rather than manipulation. See how simple it is, but the conclusion is in conformance with the language of ethics. So that is how you have to write the structure. So I hope you understood the schema. Now let us jump to the answer and start writing it. Alright. So in the introduction, I would start by telling that during COVID-19 pandemic, social media saved lives by enabling telemedicine, donation drives and awareness campaigns, yet it also spread rumors of fake cures and vaccine hesitancy. Okay, so here see, I'm trying to give both the sides of the story. One, how it was used as a boon, but how it also turned out as a bane. Okay, now I write in the next paragraph, this shows how the same platform can be a vehicle for public good or public harm, depending on depending on attitudes and regulation. Okay, so I have tried to address the first part of the question in a very brief manner, including within the introduction itself. Now I will give a flow chart. Okay, I'll give a flow chart telling that the ethical issues posed by social media. Okay, so here you can talk about deep fakes, so here you can talk about misinformation. Second, surveillance. Third, you can talk about hate speech. You can talk about algorithm preference over truth. You can talk about addiction. You can talk about mental health challenges. Okay, so these are some of the ethical issues that are posed by social media. So this is just a flow chart. I'll not go in depth here because this is not the main body of the answer. So this is the ethical issues posed by the social media. So I'm trying to address this part of the question. Okay, so if you understand the schema, if I go back and show you the schema, look at this. This is the part that I'm trying to address. So I hope you understood this. So this is the part I'm trying to address. So if they would have given two sides, in the first side, I'm going to address this whatever issue up to this point what I've written. Now going to the second side, I will give the subheading as ethical dilemma. Okay, ethical dilemma with social media. Ethical dilemma with social media. So here the first point that I will write is privacy versus confidentiality. Privacy versus confidentiality. Obviously you have to elaborate, you should not leave it there. So you should say users share personal data for convenience, but platforms exploit it for targeted advertising. For example, Cambridge Analytica scandal exposed manipulation of electoral choices. Now see, I am not only giving you the framework, I am trying to write an answer so that you understand how to elaborate a point, how to bring that paper specific language and how to integrate the examples. That is why I'm trying to tell you, please take a book and a pen and write along with me. That will be a very good exercise, because once you're done with the entire Decode Mains 2025, you will have the entire notes of all the papers with you. All you have to do is take the pen, listen to whatever I say and keep writing along with me. So I hope you people will get motivated and do it along with me. If I can do it, I want all of my students watching this video also to do it along with me. So this is the first point. Let us write the second one. The second one is free speech versus arm. Okay, free speech versus arm. You can say unchecked speech fuels cyberbullying, communal hatred and trolling. For example, the WhatsApp rumors leading to mass exodus of northeast migrants from Bangalore. Okay, this is the second one. Let us write the third dilemma. The third dilemma is truth versus virality. Here you can write algorithms prioritize sensationalism over accuracy. For example, the viral fake videos of 2023 Manipur violence that worsened the conflict as it spread much faster than the verified truth. It spread much faster than the verified truth. Okay, so this is the third one. Let us write one more dilemma, that is profitability versus responsibility. Okay, so here you can say platforms monetize user engagement, but ignore their responsibility for mental health and addiction. For example, rising cases of teen depression linked to Instagram shows this above trade-off. So we have written about how social media can be bane or boon. We have given one flowchart examining the ethical issues that is posed by the social media. Then we have spoken about 4 important dilemmas by giving examples. Okay, now that is more than enough. Now we can conclude. So in the conclusion we can say, as Gandhiji as said, means are as important as ends if social media is guided by ethical means, then it can become a tool for empowerment than manipulation. Okay, so this becomes the conclusion. So now you have understood how to exactly address the demand of the question 1A. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you understood how to structure as well as write an answer in ethics. So let us move on to the next question. So the second question is 1B. Let us first read it out. Constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment but a product of civil education and adherence to the rule of law. Okay, examine the significance of constitutional morality for public servant, highlighting the role in promoting good governance and ensuring accountability in administration. Okay, so let us first write the schema. So in the schema, we will always understand how to structure the answer. So first, in the introduction, try to talk about constitutional morality, and you have to somehow link it to the statement that is given. So in the first half, at least for the 2 lines, you have to talk about how constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment, but how it can be trained or how it can be inbuilt. So when you're defining constitutional morality, just speak a sentence about how it can be trained. So that is the first part, that is the introduction. After that, we try to talk about the significance. Then coming to the body, we try to talk about the significance of constitutional morality, and that significance can be with respect to promoting good governance. And the second is how constitutional morality will help in promoting accountability in public administration. Finally, in the conclusion, we will try to link constitutional morality to civil servants. How constitutional morality will help transform civil servants. Okay, so this is the overall schema, a very straightforward and a direct question. Now there are more chances that many students will write a lot of jargons because they have a lot of knowledge about governance. Please don't do that. Though you can use, or you have to use, governance keywords. When you use the governance keywords, the elaboration of the governance keyword should be in ethical language. That is why look at it and write with me. When you write with me, you will understand how, though the keywords are governance, the elaboration will always be ethical in language. Okay, so anyways, let us start with the introduction. So in the introduction, I will start by telling that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar described constitutional morality as a conscious respect for constitutional values of liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice. Okay, so you have told what is constitutional morality. Now, as I told you, touch upon one point, because you have given a statement there, you have to touch upon one point here. Now look at this. For public servants, this is not a abstract philosophy. This is not a abstract philosophy, but an ethical foundation. Of governance, which is cultivated through education, training, and practice of the rule of law. Okay, now see, this completes the first statement. Since the first statement they have given constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment but a product of civil education and adherence to the rule of law, the second paragraph will try to do justice to that statement. So always, if they are given a statement, you have to write a paragraph to address that statement. Don't neglect the statement and directly jump to how constitutional morality will promote good governance. You should always talk, at least in brief, write at least one paragraph and talk about what that statement is talking about. Now we can jump to the body. So in the body, as we discussed in the schema, we can first give the heading as how constitutional morality will help promote good governance. How it will help promote good governance. So here the first point is impartiality and fairness. Now look at this. Though the keyword is governance, I will try to write it in the language of ethics. Look at this and write it down. The first is constitutional morality. Constitutional morality prevents bias and arbitrariness. For example, while implementing reservation in public jobs, officers are guided by equality to ensure merit and inclusion to ensure fairness, thus strengthening trust of people in governance. Strengthening trust of people in governance. Now, as you can see, I will elaborate the example to give the context. In other GS papers, I don't elaborate so much to give the context, but in ethics, you have to elaborate to give the context. So here, while giving the example, I have to link how the example is relevant to fairness and how that fairness is part of constitutional morality and how that constitutional morality will help in promoting governance. If you don't give that context, if you just say that example reservation in public jobs and stop it there, the examiner will not be able to understand, and that is not how to write in ethics. In ethics, when you write an example, you have to substantiate the context. If you don't substantiate the context, you will not get marks. So that is the first part. The first part of how constitutional morality will help in promoting good governance is, the first, according to me, what I have taken is impartiality and fairness. Don't try to do transparency, because since in the second part they have asked about accountability and transparency are very closely interlinked. So in the second part, when you talk about accountability, there will be chances that you will be writing about transparency there also. So in the first part also, if you write transparency, then it kind of becomes redundant. So try to avoid those values and try to write other public service values in your first part of constitutional morality. So this is the impartiality and fairness. Now the second value that will help in promoting good governance, that is part of constitutional morality, is citizen centric administration. Okay, now here I will elaborate. Principle of liberty and dignity. Principle of liberty and dignity encourage officers to treat citizens as right holders, and not beneficiaries, full stop. For example, in schemes like Ayushman Bharat, a morally conscious officer ensures last mile delivery with empathy. Okay, so these are the 2 points. One is liberty, another is fairness. So liberty as well as fairness are part of constitutional morality, and how those values will help in promoting good governance. This is the first part of the body. The second part of the body is how constitutional morality will help in accountability, and that in turn will help in good governance. So let us go to the second part. So in the second part, you can say constitutional morality ensuring accountability. Okay, the first point I would like to say is answerability. Let me elaborate. Constitutional morality makes civil servants accountable to the Constitution, rather than individuals or groups. For example, district magistrate who enforces model code of conduct shows accountability to constitutional neutrality and will not favor any political parties. Look at this, how I have taken a GS2 type of an example, that is polity type of an example, but I am creating an ethical language out of it. That is how you have to do it. Okay, you have to keep it simple, but you have to bring the ethical language. The second way how constitutional morality will ensure accountability is rule of law over discretion. Discretion. Okay, let's elaborate. Rule of law, which is integral to constitutional morality, helps restrain misuse of power. For example, a district magistrate ordering land acquisition, or district magistrate ordering land acquisition with proper rehabilitation illustrates accountability to law and people simultaneously. So you understood the body. On one side I have given 2 points to elaborate how constitutional morality will promote good governance. On the other side I have told how constitutional morality will help in ensuring accountability in governance. Now let us conclude. You can conclude by telling that for a civil servant, constitutional morality transforms authority into service and discretion into responsibility, safeguarding the ethical spirit of Indian democracy. So as I told in the schema, finally in the conclusion I will connect civil servants to constitutional morality and how that equation is very important for saving the ethical spirit of Indian democracy. So this is how you will conclude. Always the conclusion should have an ethical impact on the reader. So look how ethically impactful the conclusions are. Alright, I hope you are writing it down. So this completes the second question, that is 1B. Alright guys, now let us look at the third question, that is 2A. Let us read it out. Karl von Clausewitz once said, war is a diplomacy by other means. Critically analyze, don't forget, critically analyze the above statement in the present context of contemporary geopolitical conflict. Okay, so here let us first write the schema. The schema is, first I am going to talk about the meaning of the quote. Okay, then I am going to bring the present context and talk about it. And now I will critically analyze. When I say critically analyze, I will bring a realistic viewpoint. When I say realistic viewpoint, it is more pragmatic. So pragmatic viewpoint. Then I will bring and analyze just war theory. The concept of just war given by Augustine. The next is pacifist perspective. When I say pacifist perspective, it means philosophers or leaders like Gandhiji who are always opposing any type of violence. So that is pacifist perspective. And then in the conclusion, I will try to provide my opinion of what this quote means to me. So that is how I'll create that originality in the answer. Now, as I told you in the beginning and in the analysis video as well, many people have agreed to the quote. I would suggest that you should not agree to the quote because that will legitimize war. Okay, war is not a diplomacy by other means according to me. So let us see how it is. So I hope you understood the schema. So let us now jump right to it. So first let us talk about the meaning of the quote. So in the introduction, I am going to start by telling, in peace, states use negotiations, treaties and alliances to secure their interests. When diplomacy fails, states pursue the same objective. Of national interest. Security or power through the use of armed forces. I hope you understood. That I am talking about in the introduction. So I hope you understood. I am talking about the meaning or the crux of what this quote is talking about. Alright. In the next paragraph, I say, as the above quote specifies that war is not the opposite of diplomacy, but its extension. But its extension. It means that change from dialogue to violence can happen in international relations, but the purpose remains the same. The purpose remains the same. Okay, so this is what is the crux or the meaning of what the quote is. Now let us bring different perspectives. So the first perspective I will talk about is pragmatism. Okay, so from pragmatism perspective, let us see. From a realistic lens, war is seen as a legitimate tool of statecraft. Tool of statecraft when survival and sovereignty are at stake. Okay, for example, Bangladesh Liberation War 1971 reflects the necessity of the war for the survival of the people. Okay, so this is what is pragmatism or pragmatic perspective. Okay, so let us bring the next perspective. The next perspective is just war theory. So in just war theory, you can say Augustine sets moral conditions for war. These conditions include: 1. Just cause. 2. Right intent. 3. Proportionality. And the 4th is war should be always used as last resort. So these are the conditions. Only if these conditions match, only then we should go for war, and only then that war will be considered as just war. This is what is, according to Augustine, the just war theory. All right, now by this lens, Clausewitz's statement is ethically limited because it can justify any war as mere tool of diplomacy, even aggressive wars. Look at this very carefully. So according to just war, it is completely opposite of what Karl von Clausewitz says. Now see, if you apply the just war theory, Clausewitz's statement becomes very wrong. It becomes ethically limited because according to Clausewitz's statement, that war as a diplomacy by other means it can justify any war as mere tool of diplomacy, even aggressive wars. So that is why, applying the just war theory, we can say that the statement of Clausewitz is ethically limited. So this is what is just war theory perspective. Now let us go to the next perspective, that is pacifist perspective. Let us apply that pacifist perspective. Now elaborate. Thinkers like Gandhiji argue that war seen as other means of diplomacy as deeply unethical as it legitimizes violence, destruction and suffering as political instruments. Next paragraph. From a pacifist viewpoint, violence corrodes moral legitimacy. Violence corrodes moral legitimacy and cannot be equated with dialogue. So while writing such answers, it is very important for you to bring multiple perspectives from different schools of thought that will enrich the answer ethically. Now this is how you have to write. First, while writing or structuring this answer, I have spoken about the meaning of what Karl von Clausewitz has told about war in international ethics. Then I have brought pragmatic viewpoint, then I have brought gestual viewpoint, and then I have brought pacifist viewpoint. This is how you enrich your answer. Finally, now I will conclude by giving my opinion. So in the conclusion, we can say that war can be defended if such war is proportionate for a just cause and is used as a last resort. Next point, full stop. Equating war with diplomacy. Equating war with diplomacy is morally flawed, as it normalizes violence as a political tool. Okay, so here you can bring, definitely you can bring the Russia-Ukraine war, you can bring the Iran-Israel war, or you can also bring the Palestine and Israel wars. So you can definitely use those wars as examples, definitely you can, but I hope you understood how to bring multiple perspectives to enrich the answer, especially in such quotes which are actually very tricky. When you write such answers, it shows your ethical depth and moral maturity. So I hope you enjoyed this answer, guys, and I hope you are writing with me. So this completes 2A. Alright guys, so now I think you have enjoyed up to this point how to exactly structure the answer and write an ethical answer in different issues. Now let us go to 2B. First, let me read out the question. Keeping the national security in mind, examine the ethical dilemmas related to granting clearances over environmental clearance of developmental projects in ecologically sensitive border areas in the country. So basically it is talking about, on one side, you have to give environmental clearance for developmental projects in border areas for security. But on the other hand, there are ecologically fragile areas along the border areas, so preservation is also important. So overall, this dilemma is what you have to talk about. So this is how we will write the schema. So the schema of this answer will be, so in the introduction, I will try to bring some philosophy of environmental ethics, because this is entirely talking about environment and its preservation and its integrity. I'll talk about the philosophy of environmental ethics. I'll bring some philosopher and talk about environmental ethics and try to connect it to the question that is given. So this will be my introduction. So in the body, very simple it is, you have to list different ethical dilemma. Okay, so we'll list out the different ethical dilemma, and finally in the conclusion you will try to balance territorial integrity with the ecological integrity. Obviously you cannot take sides, you have to balance both territorial integrity as well as ecological integrity. So this is how we will write the entire answer. So let us start off with the introduction. So in the introduction, I would like to introduce philosopher Ernie Naes' concept of deep ecology. Okay, you can start by telling philosopher Ernie Naes' concept of deep ecology emphasizes that ecosystem possess an intrinsic moral worth. This statement is very important. Ecosystem possess an intrinsic moral worth, not just instrumental values, not just instrumental value for humans, Okay, now in the second paragraph, I will try to connect it to the question. So you can say that in India's ecologically fragile borderlands, granting environmental clearance for defense projects raises the ethical dilemma of whether anthropocentric security goals can ethically justify the sacrifice of ecocentric responsibility towards future generations and biodiversity. Okay, so this is the introduction, first paragraph and second paragraph. Now we will jump to the ethical dilemmas. The ethical dilemmas posed by such environmental clearances. Okay, the first one will be security versus sustainability. Okay, security versus sustainability. Again, look at the elaboration, write the elaboration with me. Now in security versus sustainability, you can say strategic roads and tunnels are essential for troop mobility, especially along Indo-China border. Full stop. Yet large scale deforestation can trigger landslides leading to ecological collapse, undermining human security in the long run. So look at this, how I have introduced the dilemma, and inside the dilemma I have tried to bring that human touch. So that is what is important when you are elaborating in paper 4 ethics. So this is the first dilemma, that is security versus sustainability. Let us move to the second one. The second one is utilitarianism versus rights. Utilitarianism versus rights. So here you can elaborate by telling projects may serve the greater good of national defense, but often displays local communities, violating their rights to livelihood and culture. Okay, so this is the second one. The third one, let us go to the third one. The third one you can talk about short term versus intergenerational ethics. Short term versus intergenerational ethics. So here you can say security benefits are immediate, but environmental degradation affects future generations. Environmental degradation affects future generations. This is the third dilemma. Let us move on to the last dilemma. The last dilemma is, you can talk about rule of law versus exceptionality. Rule of law versus exceptionality. Here elaborate by telling bypassing environmental clearance, citing security reasons can erode governance integrity and set precedents for misuse. And set precedents for misuse. Okay, so these are some of the dilemmas that you can see. Broader dilemma is anthropocentric versus ecocentric. Within that anthropocentric and ecocentric, we have written different dilemmas. For example, sustainability versus security, long term versus short term, rule of law versus exceptionality. So these are different dilemmas that comes under a broader goal of anthropocentric versus ecocentric. All right, as I told you in the ending, in the conclusion, you should always try to balance. So let us write the conclusion. So in the conclusion, you can say the dilemma is not binary of environment versus security. The dilemma is not binary of environment versus security. You can full stop, you can continue by telling true national security lies in protecting both territorial integrity and ecological foundations or ecological integrity, which are critical for human survival. So as I told you, at the end you should balance both territorial integrity as well as environmental integrity. So this is how you can balance the answer. Again, a straightforward answer. I hope you can write a lot of points within this. Now, I told you that how to generate ethical dilemmas. Always make sure that you write the stakeholders. So the stakeholders here are now the state, the citizens, the people who are also the citizens, but they are living in the border area, the future generation, and then the environment. When I say environment, it means the flora as well as the fauna, that is the biodiversity as such. Now look, you have illustrated all the stakeholders. Now identify what is the dilemma between different stakeholders. Now look, I will teach you. Now see, for the development of citizens, you have to be anthropocentric. That is why developmental projects are very important. However, that will come in conflict with ecocentric. Okay, so this is one dilemma. One dilemma is anthropocentric versus ecocentric. The second one, look at this. The local population are integral part of the environment. Okay, so their livelihood is present. Now, when environmental clearance is given by the state for security, look at this. The security will come in conflict with their livelihood. This is the second dilemma. The third dilemma, you can talk about the dilemma between the state versus the environment. Okay, here you can talk about security versus sustainability. Are you understanding this? So by illustrating different stakeholders, I can identify what is the different dilemma between different stakeholders. That is how you have to develop the skills to always analyze how you can remove or extract the dilemmas when they give you a case. So I hope you have understood this. There will be a lot of dilemma that they will try to identify. So you have to develop this skill. Two very important things that you have to develop while writing ethics paper is, one, to identify the ethical issues that are involved. The second is to identify the ethical dilemmas that are involved. This skill is very, very important when you are writing mains exam, and I hope you are learning this by writing the answers along with me. So this completes this question. Let us move on to the next one. Alright guys, now let us look at the quote-based questions. As I told in the analysis, when we say quote-based questions, you should not try to write spontaneously whatever comes to your mind. When you try to write spontaneously whatever comes to your mind, you are not going to create an order, or there is not going to be any structure. So whenever you are going to practice the next time for the upcoming mains 2026, make sure that you take the quotes and try to create a structure before you try to write the answer. Just like how you do it for essay, in the same manner, this you should consider this as a short 10-marker essay and try to structure it and try to write the answer. Let me just illustrate to you. Let us start off with the first quote, that is 3A. It says, "Those who in trouble untroubled are, will trouble itself through." Okay, again it looks a little confusing, but it's very, very straightforward. However, let us give the strata or the schema to this particular quote. Okay, always I will start by telling the meaning of the quote, meaning to me, because see, in the question paper they have given, what does this quote mean to you in the present context? So what does it mean to you? Bringing that originality of what it means to you is very, very important. So those people who can bring that originality will always get good marks. Okay. So according to me, what does this quote mean? So that is the first thing that I'll bring. The second is I will try to relate this to any other parallel philosophy. Okay, so is there any other thinker, any other philosopher that tells the same thing and how relevant it is? So that is the second thing that I'll try. The third is how is it important to me? How is it important to me? I will talk about this. The next is I will try to talk about any contemporary relevance. Any contemporary relevance of this particular quote in today's world. And obviously the fifth is I will try to conclude. Look at this. This is the overall schema that I am going to follow in order to write a quote, so that that quote will be analyzed in a very structured manner. Many students they will start writing spontaneously. What happens is they will start writing the same point again and again and again. So with different forms, they are going to tell the same thing. So that does not work. The second problem what happens is many students, when they take the quote, they will tell the meaning in the first paragraph and they will try to add more and more examples and going. So it becomes a compendium of examples rather than telling what does that quote mean to you in the present context. If you look at the question paper very carefully, they are explicitly telling what does that quote mean to you. So it should always reflect what does it quote mean to you. Okay, so with that, let us start off with the answer then. All right, so let us start off by telling the quote suggests that when individuals remain calm and composed in difficult times, they weaken the power of the problem itself. They weaken the power of the problem itself. So I've told the meaning. Now I will try to bring some parallel philosophy. Let's look at this. The quote resonates with the Stoic philosophy. It resonates with Stoic philosophy, which teaches control over responses rather than circumstances. Full stop. It also echoes the Bhagavad Gita's concept of Sthita Prajna, where a wise person remains steady. A wise person remains steady in success or failure. So look at this. So I'm trying to bring parallelly different other schools of thought that will match with the quote that has been given. Okay. Then I will tell that the above quote is important to me as such composure prevents panic, ensures rational judgment, and inspires confidence within me and among people surrounding me. Look at this. This is the originality that you have to bring. The quote very specifically, the question very specifically says, what does that quote mean to you? If you don't write what does it mean to you, then you're not doing justice. You're just illustrating what you have learned in the books, and that will purely become academic. It should not be academic, it should be you. Yourself should be reflected, your personality should be reflected in the quote. That is what I kept on telling in the class. That is what I've been telling all my advanced masterclass students, and they've been doing an exceptional job. But most of the students do not realize this fact that you have to bring what does it mean to you. I hope you understand this. So you have given the meaning, you have given parallel philosophy, and at the end you have told how does this particular quote become important to me. Okay. Now you can bring other things like contemporary relevance. So let us talk about contemporary relevance. Okay. Crisis management. In disasters such as floods and pandemics, panic worsens the situations. A calm officer ensures rational decisions. A calm officer ensures rational decisions. Okay. The second, so this is the first contemporary relevance. The second one is leadership under pressure. Okay. So if you take leadership under pressure, you can say leaders' steadiness prevents demoralization and ensures continuity of governance. Okay. The next one, you can write ethical governance. Here you can say being untroubled reflects integrity, patience and impartiality, which are key to resisting corruption, political pressure and public anger. All right, so let us now conclude this particular question. So in the conclusion, you can say Tiruvalluvar's wisdom underscores that resilience is the highest form of strength. Resilience is the highest form of strength. So this is how I will loop back and give the crux of what the quote is in the conclusion. So I hope you have got an idea of how to address the quote based questions. So this completes 3A. Let us move on to the next one. Alright guys, so let us look at the second quote, and the second quote is as follows, 3B. The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes. William James. Again, let us write the schema. So in this is another way of writing the schema in quote-based questions. I'm going to teach you another style of writing. Look at this. So obviously in the introduction, you will talk about the meaning. Then you can use the particular quote and create your own questions. For example, see, the second thing I'll address is how attitude alters lives. So this is first thing that I'll address. The second thing I'll address is why is it the greatest discovery? Why is it the greatest discovery? And the third thing, as I told you, is you should write what does it mean to you? Okay, that becomes very, very important. And the fourth thing is what will be the conclusion. Okay, so this is the overall schematic that you have to use in order to structure the answer for quote-based questions. So let us jump right to it and start writing the answer. Now in the beginning, let us first tell what is the meaning of this particular quote. So you can start by telling William James is actually an American psychologist, but that is okay. William James highlights that attitude is the moral compass. Attitude is the moral compass of life. Altering attitudes transforms not only perception but also behavior, relationships and collective destinies. Alright, so this is what according to me means the quote. So let me just reiterate what I have written. William James highlights that attitude is the moral compass of life. Altering attitudes transforms not only perception but also behavior, relationships and collective destinies. Okay, so we have written what does it mean. Let us move to the second part of our structuring, that is how attitude will alter lives. So in the second part you can give the heading how attitude alters lives. Here you can talk about, many people will talk about Viktor Frankl, who has written Man's Search for Meaning. That also is a very apt example to use here, but I will use another person who is a survivor of an Holocaust, who is very, very famous as well. He is Eddie Jacko. Okay, so I'll use this example of Eddie Jacko, a Holocaust survivor who lost his family and endured the torture given in the concentration camps by Nazi Germans, and even after that called himself the happiest man on earth. The happiest man on earth. Okay, now next paragraph you have to explain what this is, so you have to connect it to the quote. Here you say, despite unimaginable trauma, he chose an attitude of gratitude and forgiveness. His life illustrates altering attitudes one can transform, one can transform the very meaning and quality of life. Okay, now look at this. This is very important for you to learn. Whenever you give an example to correlate with the quote, you have to connect. You have to connect the example with the meaning of the quote. Okay, if you don't connect it with the meaning of the quote, then again you're leaving it half empty. So you should not do that. You should not leave them hanging. You should always explicitly mention why you're using that example. So this is how you should elaborate in the quote. So we have addressed how altitude alters lives. Now let us go to the second question and try to write down, why is it considered the greatest discovery? Why is it considered the greatest discovery according to William James? Let us elaborate this. Altering attitudes shifts mindset from fatalism to moral agency. That is, what does it mean? It means our mindset will not be only thinking that whatever happens is due to fate. It will not think like that. So we will remove that fatalism, and then we will always think of moral agency. What is moral agency? Whatever actions that we do, we'll always reason it out morally and then do our actions. So that altering attitude will always shift our mindset from fatalism to moral agency. That's what it means. Okay, I explained this because it's a kind of technical. So I felt that many students who have not done their ethics may actually face some problems here, so that's why I thought I'll explain that. All right, altering attitude shifts mindset from fatalism to moral agency. All right, now let me explain what this first sentence means in the second line. Here you can say, what it means is individuals are not prisoners of circumstances, but co-authors of their lives. Okay, in the next paragraph you can write, it aligns with modern psychology such as cognitive behavioral therapy and neuroplasticity, which show that thought pattern once reshaped alter emotions and behavior. Okay, now see, this is where I'm telling it is the greatest discovery. What is the greatest discovery? We are taking control of our lives, and that is the greatest discovery. And there also I am trying to bring another parallel philosophy. As I told you, it's always good if you bring the parallel philosophy. All right, so now let us go to the last part of the quote where you have to express yourself. What does it mean to you? So here you can say, according to me as well. It is the greatest discovery. It is the greatest discovery, as circumstances are imposed but responses are chosen. Thus, the path to resilience, justice, and human flourishing begins not outside us but within us. Look at this. This is what does it mean to you. So this is where I'm addressing what does it mean to me. So that is how you write a code based question. So this is another style of writing code based question. So I hope that you like this. Okay, so this is the second code. Let us move on to the next one. Alright guys, now let us start off with the third code based question, and by now I think you would have got some type of familiarity of how to go about code based questions. So practice using these tools that I have taught you. Anyways, the third one, let us complete the third one. The third one is very easy. So look at this. The strength of the society is not in laws but in the morality of the people. Swami Vivekananda. Okay, so basically it is asking you to compare laws which are much smaller compared to morality. So this is the overall crux of what this particular quote is talking about. First, as I keep telling you, create a schema. So in the schema, first I'm going to talk about the meaning. Then I'm going to talk about what does it mean to me. Then I'm going to substantiate. I'm going to substantiate why morality is greater than laws. I'm going to substantiate with respect to taking family as an example. Then I'll take society as an example. Okay, so this is where I will do the substantiation. Then I will talk about a contemporary relevance. And finally, I will conclude this particular code. Alright, so this is how you create a structure, and don't write randomly whatever comes to your mind. So let us start off. So in the introduction, let me talk about the meaning. So here you can say that Swami Vivekananda's statement underlines that while laws provide external regulation, it is the inner morality that sustains the real strength of society. Next paragraph. As I told you, meaning is done. According to me. Next, according to me, laws can prescribe duties and punish for violations, but they remain effective only when people internalize values such as honesty, compassion, justice and fairness. Look at this. So I have written what is the meaning, and then I have written what does it mean to me. Okay, so these are the two paragraphs. Then let me start substantiating. As I told you, one I'll substantiate family wise, another I'll substantiate in society. Alright, so let us start. So one is, I'll give the heading as family and care ethics. So in family and care ethics, I'll say no law or statute can enforce love, sacrifice or respect within families. It is morality which manifests in the form of sense of duty, in bracket you can say dharma, sense of duty, that preserves the social fabric. For example, caring for elderly in India is a moral
expectation is a moral expectation even if legal provisions like maintenance of parents act exist. So this is where I am substantiating with respect to family and care ethics. Now let me substantiate taking a societal example. Okay, so in the next paragraph you can say honesty in everyday transactions. Honesty in everyday transactions. Here you can say a shopkeeper returning excess money given by mistake reflects ethical conduct that no law can monitor continuously. Look at this, a very simple example but very impactful. Next paragraph you can say such micro moral choices build social order and social trust, which is the invisible capital of a strong society. Without it, commerce would collapse into suspicion and exploitation. Okay, all right, look at this. In this particular quote, I have used so many keywords. For example, you can see micro moral choices, moral expectation, invisible capital, love, sacrifice, care ethics. So these are some of the keywords that you should be repeatedly using in the answer to actually show the language of ethics. If you don't use those keywords, it will not create that language of ethics and it will not create that impact on the reader who's reading this paper of ethics. That's why I kept on telling you that you should write along with me. Writing along with me is very important. When you do that, your brain automatically registers whatever keyword that I keep using and it will automatically remember when you're writing this paper as a test in your future exams. So that is why please make sure that you're writing with me, and I hope you're realizing how important it is to bring that specific language when you're writing that specific paper. Alright, so let us go to the next one. The next, as I told you, is contemporary relevance. So in contemporary relevance, I can talk about in today's information ecosystem. Laws attempt to curb fake news and online hatred. Yet it is the moral responsibility of users to verify information before forwarding, to practice digital restraint and to avoid speech that incites harm or hatred. Okay, so this is contemporary relevance. Now let us conclude it. Thus, while laws are the skeleton of society, morality is the soul. Look, again I'm bringing that ethical vocabulary here. Laws are the skeleton of society, morality is the soul. Next, you can continue by saying laws set the minimum threshold of conduct, but morality raises the bar of any civilization. Look at this. So this is how you conclude in ethics. it should be very impactful, it should have ethical vocabulary. How will you get this is with practice, and this type of conclusion you can usually keep it as ready-made. Look at this. This is a conclusion where I have two variables. Since they're asking me two variables, I have added laws and morality here. If I can change those two variables to something else, even that will stand good. For example, I can say honesty and integrity. Honesty sets the minimum threshold, whereas integrity raises the bar of civilization. Look at this. I can use the same conclusion for two variables, and that variables can be anything else. So that smartness you will get when you're practicing a lot of answers. It does not come by reading a lot of books. It comes only by practicing a lot of answers. And I hope you people are learning everything that I'm telling, and you people are writing along with me. So this completes the very important and very scoring quote-based questions of 3A, 3B and 3C. Alright, now let us go to the next question, that is 4A. Let us read out the question first. For any kind of social re-engineering by successful implementing welfare schemes, a civil servant must use reason and critical thinking in an ethical framework. Justify this statement with suitable examples. Okay, again, as we usually do, let us talk about the schema. So in the schema, I'll talk about first, in the introduction, I will talk about how welfare schemes in India are helping in social re-engineering. So this is one thing that I'll talk. Then I will create two parts in the body. So in the body, I'll talk about how reason by civil servants can help successfully re-engineer. That is first thing. The second thing, this is the first thing. The second thing I'll talk about is how critical thinking by civil servants will help in successful re-engineering. Okay, and finally we will write the conclusion. Okay, in conclusion we'll try to integrate how reasoning and critical thinking will help a civil servant in making the welfare schemes successful in social re-engineering. So this is what we are trying to connect. Okay, there are many variables to play with, so you should be very, very careful. So let us start off. So in the introduction, you can talk that, or you can start by telling welfare schemes are not merely financial allocations, but instruments of social re-engineering in India. Social re-engineering means reducing inequalities, empowering marginalized, and transforming societal realities for greater good. Look at this. So in the introduction, telling what exactly social re-engineering will actually show clarity in your thought, and that will actually get more marks if you show the examiner explicitly what social re-engineering means according to you. That is actually very, very important, and that's why you have to write that. That's what I told in the analysis also, remember? So this is how I'll introduce. Then in the second paragraph, I will follow up by telling that hence, for a civil servant implementing a welfare scheme is not just a technical task, but a moral responsibility, for which reason and critical thinking are essential. Okay, so I'm going to write wherever there is space for me, but you should write very neatly, so that this whatever that we are writing should become notes for you to revise one, and also for you to create a framework. This is a framework that you should practice for the future tests that you're going to write. So this whatever answer that you write becomes very, very important as a reference book, and this reference book should always be referred whenever you get doubt of how to write answers in mains. So make sure that whatever you're writing it very, very neatly. All right, so now we have completed the introduction part. Let us move into the body. In the body, as I told you, two parts. First, I'll talk about reason and its role in implementing welfare schemes. The second is critical thinking and its role in implementing welfare schemes. So first, let us give the heading as role of reason in successfully implementing welfare schemes. Okay, so here you can write reason prevents mechanical compliance. Reason prevents mechanical compliance and ensures that schemes achieve their intended purposes. For example, they are told illustrate through examples, so you have to write examples. For example, in MGNREGA, an officer applying reason may use digital monitoring to eliminate ghost beneficiaries while also directing permissible works towards water conservation, comma, thereby blending efficiency with sustainability. Next paragraph, without such reasoning. This is very important. This is where you are connecting it. You should write this paragraph. This is where you connect it. Without such reasoning, comma, the scheme risks becoming just a wage transfer mechanism. Look at this. This paragraph becomes very important, and this is where you actually get the marks. Whatever you are written here is an example, but you are going to write that example and connect it to that reason, and how that reason within the ethical framework will create that social re-engineering, and that social re-engineering will make the implementation of the welfare schemes a success. That connection is very, very important, and I hope you have written it, and I hope you realize the importance of it. That is the essence of this exercise of writing along with me. So this is about the first part. Let us go to the second part. The next is role of critical thinking. Role of critical thinking in implementing successful welfare schemes. Role of critical thinking in implementing successful welfare schemes. Here you can say critical thinking is required to balance competing values. Okay, for example, in midday meal scheme, a reflective officer may decide to source fortified food from local produce, not just to cut costs but to improve children's nutrition. Next paragraph, this shows, again look, I am connecting here. This paragraph that I am going to write becomes very important because I am going to connect this paragraph to whatever I have explained. Look at this, and this is very, very important. This shows critical thinking of the officer aligns economic prudence with social justice. Look at this. This connecting last paragraph becomes very, very important to connect your example. This is where many people will miss not writing it, thinking that the examiner will anyway understand. That implicit or assumptions should not be done. Everything that you write should be explicitly written. Whatever connection should happen should be done explicitly, not under the assumption that the examiner may understand or will understand. That is wrong. So I hope you realize this. Alright, so we have concluded the body. So let us go to the conclusion. As I told you in the conclusion, let us connect both reason and critical thinking. So here you can start by telling in the conclusion, thus reason and critical thinking prevent welfare schemes from degenerating into box ticking exercise, but make welfare schemes a social re-engineering tool that can lead to ethical transformation of society. Look at this, how I have connected both. I'll just read it out again. Thus, reason and critical thinking prevent, okay, thus reason and critical thinking prevent welfare schemes from degenerating into box ticking exercise and make welfare schemes a social re-engineering tool that can lead to ethical transformation of the society. So again, look at this. This is how you ethically conclude by creating an impact in the reader. So I hope you are understanding how to conclude the answers. So this completes this question. Let us move on to the next one. Alright guys, now we are looking at the next question, that is 4B, a very, very straightforward and direct question. These are things that you should have practiced. You should not even think twice. You should just write an answer for this. Let us read it out. What are the major teachings of Mahavira? Examine or explain their relevance in contemporary world. Okay, let us write the schema. In the schema, obviously I am going to give the introduction about Mahavira. How Mahavira was a Tirthankara, the 24th Tirthankara to be exact, and what are his teachings. Then obviously I will tell that teachings. So with every teaching, I will give the contemporary relevance. Okay, so if there are 5 teachings, so every 5 teachings that I am going to talk about, I am going to give the contemporary relevance there itself. So that will be more better way of structuring. So I'll give 5 different examples or 5 different contexts, and that will show the depth of my understanding of the teachings of Mahavira. So this is how I will write to, so this is how I'll try to write the answer. So next is conclusion. I'll try to conclude it. Okay. So again, as I told you, a straightforward one. Let us start off with the introduction. So in the introduction, we can say Mahavira, 24th Tirthankara of Jainism, 24th Tirthankara of Jainism, propounded the 5 great vows which are known as Mahavratas, which are as follows. Mahavratas, which are as follows. The first is non-violence or ahimsa. The second is truth or satya. The third is aparigraha, in bracket non-possession. Fourth one is asteya, which means non-stealing. The fifth one is brahmacharya, which means self-control. Okay, now many people, what they do, they try to attach the narrow meaning to the teachings. For example, let me give an illustration. When you say non-violence, non-violence means ahimsa. So when I say ahimsa, it does not mean just fighting, or it does not mean wars. Avoiding fighting and avoiding wars is not just ahimsa. Ahimsa can be even in the mind. Ahimsa can be even in actions. Ahimsa can be even the way we speak. So in the realm of, in the world of social media, there is so much of hate speech. Avoiding that hate speech is also a form of ahimsa. So you should have a wider meaning of the teachings. Don't look at it in a narrow way. If you look at it in a narrow way, you will not be able to write a very good contemporary relevance of any teachings. So whenever in the exam they ask you to give the contemporary relevance of any teaching, always look at the teaching from a broader angle and not very specific or narrow angle. I'll give you one more example. See, when you say brahmacharya, it means celibacy, but when you take celibacy, you will not be able to attach that to contemporary relevance. But if you take brahmacharya and if you talk in the lens of self-control, that self-control or temperance itself is a very good tool in the modern context, and you can bring different contemporary relevance and talk different ways of how that teaching can be helpful. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Don't look at it exactly from a narrow lens. Come one step back and look at it from a broader perspective. You will get a lot of contemporary relevance of any teachings of any philosophy. So be very careful and have that particular guideline in your book, saying that whenever they ask what is the contemporary relevance of a philosophy, you should always look at it from a broader perspective. You should not look at it from very narrow or very specific perspective. Alright, now let us go one by one, and every teaching we will take, we will tell the meaning of it and then we will tell the contemporary relevance. Very quickly we can finish it off. So the first one is non-violence or ahimsa. So here, according to me, what this particular interpretation of Mahavira's ahimsa is in today's world, look at this. It means non-injury in thought, deed or action towards all living things. Okay, after this you have to write the contemporary relevance. Contemporary relevance, let us say this lesson teaches us better conflict resolution, peace building is vital to reduce communal tensions and rising global warlike tendencies. Global warlike tendencies. So this is how you can say how non-violence is important in contemporary world. Let us go to the second one. The second one is trust or satya. Here you can say trust in the form of integrity. Trust in the form of integrity is foundation of strength of any society. Foundation of strength of any society. Now again you can talk about the contemporary relevance. So here in contemporary relevance you can say that in the age of fake news and misinformation, truthfulness underpins ethical governance and enhances public trust in democracy and the government. So this is how you can say trust. Okay, let us go to the third one. The third important lesson is aparigraha or non-possession. So here you can elaborate by telling detachment from excessive materialism and greed promotes simplicity, sustainability and inner contentment. Now bring the contemporary relevance. So you can say contemporary relevance. Here you can say this lesson provides a framework for individuals, societies, institutions to follow the path of sustainable development, sustainable development, inclusive growth, and minimalism, which are vital for humans to fight against climate change. Okay, so this is how you can bring the contemporary relevance. So this is the third one. Let us go to the fourth one. In fourth one, you can say is asteya. So asteya means non-stealing. So here you can say this lesson teaches us ethical restraint. It teaches us ethical restraint against corruption and exploitation. Corruption and exploitation. Now bring the contemporary relevance. Contemporary relevance is, you can say, it addresses corruption in public office, comma, private or corporate fraud and plagiarism, which are key challenges to integrity in public and private life. Okay, so this is the fourth lesson. Let us move on to the next one. The next is, fifth one is brahmacharya or self control. Okay, this teaches us the need for moderation and restraint in our desires. Okay, it teaches us the need to cultivate discipline over impulses. Okay, again you can write contemporary relevance. You can elaborate by telling, in the age of consumerism, addictions and digital distractions, self-control plays a vital role in preserving individuals' identity as well as sanity. So in this way, we have tried to illustrate the 5 important teachings of Mahavira and try to give contemporary relevance for individual teaching. So finally, we can conclude. So we can conclude by telling that is 5 great vows continue to serve a timeless guide to personal integrity, social harmony, and environmental sustainability. So in a way, I am talking about individually it helps in personal integrity, and with respect to environment it will help in maintaining the environmental sustainability, and overall within the society also it helps in harmony. So in this way, I am trying to address different dimensions within the conclusion. So this is how I would like to conclude this straightforward question. Alright guys, now let us move on to the next question, and the next question is 5a. Let us look at this. One who is devoted to one's duty attains highest perfection in life. Look at this, they have given a quote. Now they say, analyze this statement with reference to sense of responsibility and personal fulfillment as a civil servant. So basically, look, when they give a statement like this, you have to address this statement. At least you have to address one paragraph. You have to write one paragraph about that particular statement. Don't jump directly to address devotion of duty and helping in sense of responsibility, and don't jump directly into the body of the answer, that is analyzing the sense of responsibility and personal fulfillment. Don't go there without addressing first the given statement. So in our schema, okay, first we will talk about the statement. See, the crux of the statement is nothing but it is talking about devotion to duty. So that is the entire crux. So we'll talk about that statement in the beginning, so in the introduction. Then in the body, we will talk about how devotion to duty will help in sense of responsibility. Then we will talk about how devotion to duty will help in personal fulfillment. Okay, then we will try to write the conclusion and we will try to give the concluding remark on devotion to duty. Okay, so this is overall how the schema is. A very direct question. You should have written a very good answer for this. Let us start off in the introduction. So in the introduction, you can start by telling the statement captures. See, I'm talking about the first statement. The statement captures the essence of ethical life, which means the devotion to duty pursued sincerely leads to both societal good and inner perfection. Okay, this is how one paragraph I have tried to address what that statement is. Okay, now I'll try to bring some parallel philosophy here. Look at this. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna reminds Arjuna that fulfillment lies not in reward but in faithful discharge of one's swadharma. Faithful discharge of one's swadharma. Again, this substantiate whatever the statement is given. Now, after giving these two paragraphs to substantiate the statement, now let us jump to the body. So in the body, as I told you, we should talk about devotion to duty. Put a hyphen and say sense of responsibility in civil services. Devotion to duty, sense of responsibility in civil services. Okay, here you can say it means acting with impartiality, ensuring justice is delivered without fear or favor. Okay, second point you can say practicing probity so that public resources are managed with stewardship. Okay, third one you can say showing empathy. Here you can elaborate telling that by aligning decisions with the needs of the most vulnerable. Now see how devotion of duty will create sense of responsibility among civil services. I have given 3 points, but now I will connect all the 3 points to the subheading or the demand of the body. Look at this. The next paragraph is very important because that is the connecting paragraph. Look at this. Devotion to duty makes the sense of responsibility not merely mechanical compliance, but a moral responsibility that sustains the legitimacy of governance. that sustains the legitimacy of governance. Now this is very, very important. After you write those 3 points, if you just let it go, the examiner will not understand clearly what you're trying to tell. So after writing those 3 points, for example, showing empathy or practicing probity or practicing impartiality, how that devotion to duty, bringing this impartiality, probity, how those 3 points that you have written under the subheading, that 3 points showing empathy, probity, impartiality, how those 3 are part of devotion to duty and how they will enhance the responsibility to moral responsibility. That connecting paragraph is this. So this paragraph is actually very, very important that you have to write. This you can double underline even in the answer. That is not an issue at all. So this completes the first part of how devotion to duty will enhance sense of responsibility. Now give the next heading. Devotion to duty becomes path of personal fulfillment. Personal fulfillment. Here, first one you can talk about Aristotle's view of eudaimonia. Okay, so here you can say Aristotle's view of eudaimonia, which means flourishing life. Okay, so here you can say the flourishing life emerges not from possessions but from virtuous activity. Now just by giving the philosophy you should not stop it there, you have to link it back to civil services. Okay, so in the next paragraph you should say civil servants who immerse themselves into nation building, experience this blend of duty and joy, much like E. Sridharan, Armstrong, Pame, Dr. Varghese Kurian or T.N. Session. Okay, so I've given a philosophy and I've tried to substantiate by linking it back to the civil services. Now let us conclude. So in the conclusion you can say, thus when one is true to their duty, it becomes guide to their ethical conduct and a source to their deep happiness, bringing together public service and personal experience. Bringing together public service as well as personal experience. So this is how I would like to conclude. So I hope you like the way we structured the answer. Let us move on to the next one. Alright guys, now let us proceed with the next question, and the next question is 5B. Let me first read it out. To achieve holistic development goal, a civil servant acts as an enabler and active facilitator of growth rather than regulator. What specific measures will you suggest to achieve this goal? Okay, now the answer is a little tricky because many people will write in the language of GS2, but you should be very careful that you should not write in the language of GS2, but you should write in the language of GS4. That is why it is necessary that you write the answers with me to understand how there is a difference between writing the language with GS4 than GS2. So I hope you are writing with me. Let us first create a schema. So in this schema, so introduction. Okay, I'll try to bring a philosopher or any type of a thinker and try to tell how the importance of civil servant is. How the importance of civil service is. For example, here I'll bring the introduction of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's quote. Okay, so that is how I will introduce. Then see, this is how I'm making it more ethical. Okay, now then in the body I will talk about the measures. When I am talking about the measures, I am not going to just list out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6
we have to increase transparency, we have to increase accountability, we have to increase answerability. So I'll not be just enumerating the points. I'll not be just telling about we have to increase accountability, answerability, compassion, empathy. So I'll not keep listing it out. I have to tell or create a narrative that actually is in conformance with the language of ethics. That is why it is very important. That is where that subtle difference lies of you scoring 120 plus and you staying at 100 in the mains exam. So that is where the difference is. People who are scoring 90 and 100 means that they are writing English or some other language that is not in conformance with the language of ethics. It is not that they don't understand the concepts. They also understand the concepts very well. The only difference is they'll not be writing the answers in conformance with the language of ethics. That is where the difference lies of that extra 20 marks. So you should always know how to write, in which paper you are writing. You should always know which language that you have to bring to write the answer. That ability and skill is very, very important, especially in mains. Okay. So in the body, I'll not be using the steps. I'll not be creating steps. I'll use 4 paragraphs. And in every paragraph, I will try to create a narrative of how a measure can help in a civil servant becoming an enabler. So that is how I'll try to create the answer in the body. So I'll try to write within the 4 paragraphs 4 different measures and how that will help in making a civil servant an enabler. So finally, in the conclusion, since they are talking about 2 variables, enabler and regulator, you can link them and write. So in the conclusion, you can say how civil servants, what is the benefit of them being enablers? That is, they will empower people, they will increase the trust, and what is the disadvantages of them acting as regulators? So what are the disadvantages on one side, or what is the advantage on the other side? So just giving a glimpse of that in the conclusion actually helps. So this is how we can write the schematic or the structuring of the answer. So let us start off with the introduction. So in the introduction, you can say by telling that, or as I told you, I will start with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So you can say Dr. B.R. Ambedkar advocated for an administration rooted in responsibility and fairness, comma, not in arbitrary exercise of power or domination. Okay, in the next paragraph I will follow up. I have to link it back to the civil services. So in the next paragraph I will tell a civil servant therefore must act as a catalyst of inclusive growth, comma, ensuring that governance becomes participatory, empathetic and future oriented. Look at this. These 2 paragraphs actually does the justice of giving the gist of that first statement of to achieve holistic development goal, a civil servant acts as an enabler and active facilitator. So I'm trying to substantiate that particular statement by giving these 2 paragraphs. Okay, now let us go to the measures. So that is why don't jump off to the measures suddenly. You have to give some type of a context and then jump to the body. So as we discussed in the schema, so we are done with the introduction. Let us go to the body. And in the body, look how we can create an ethical answer by suggesting measures. Alright, let us proceed. So next, measures to achieve the goal of civil servants acting as enablers and facilitators. Okay, so now the first statement, look at this, from policing to partnering. So here you can say shift in mindset from rule enforcer to community partner. This
helps prioritizing empathy and persuasion over coercion. Empathy and persuasion over coercion. Okay, so this particular aspect is very important. This is what brings that language. Example, you can write example: in Araku Valley, Andhra Pradesh, an IAS officer worked with tribals to create organic coffee collectives, linking them to global markets. The civil servant in this case acted as an enabler and not controller. Now look how I'm bringing the language of ethics. I hope you're realizing it and I hope you're writing with me. So this is the first measure. Let us move to the second one. The second measure is turning welfare into capability expansion. So here you can say, beyond distributing benefits, officers can use schemes to expand people's choices. Example, in Dantewada, Chhattisgarh, the administration started education city for tribal children who were displaced by conflict, converting welfare into empowerment. Okay, so this is where you can expand people's choices, and expanding people's choices is another measure that welfare scheme should not be looked just as a welfare scheme, but it should be used as a tool of empowerment. That is what is the second important measure that I'm trying to suggest. All right, let us look at the third measure. The third measure is enabling ethical innovation. Here you can say, officers can act as catalysts by encouraging grassroots solutions. For example, Kannan Gopinathan, who was an IAS officer, is resigned now, but that doesn't matter. Anyways, we can give that instance because the instance is correct. For example, Kannan Gopinathan, who was an IAS officer in Dadra and Nagar Haveli, set up low cost solar microgrids in villages, enabling energy independence rather than dependence on subsidies. Okay, so this is the third measure. The fourth one I can say, balancing growth with equity. So here you should say, civil servants should always safeguard the vulnerable groups should always safeguard the vulnerable groups while pursuing growth or development, and hence must always act as facilitators. Okay, for example, you can take Kudremukha National Park. The local administrators enabled ecotourism projects for tribals as alternative employment after mining restrictions were imposed in the area. This balances conservation as well as livelihood security. So I hope that you understood how to write measures in ethics paper. You always have to create a narrative and substantiate with an example. That example can be hypothetical, that may happen in the future, or it can be something that you have already collected. That is okay, but you have to create that narrative in every paragraph. You cannot just enumerate the points and go. So I hope you realize this. Now let us conclude the answer. So in the conclusion, you can say that a regulator controls but an enabler empowers. Okay, a regulator controls but an enabler empowers. Continue. By aligning fairness, empathy, inclusivity and sustainability. Fairness, empathy, inclusivity and sustainability. These are all keywords that you should have in your fingertips when you're writing the answer. Okay, by aligning fairness, empathy, inclusivity and sustainability with administrative action, comma, a civil servant transforms governance into participatory journey. And underline this word, a regulator controls but an enabler empowers. Okay, this kind of links the two variables that are given in the question. Alright, so this is how you have to write an ethics answer. This is how you have to play around with the two variables. So I hope you are understanding how to play around with the variables and to make sure that the demands are met within the different parts of the question. Alright, so this completes 5B. Let us move on to the next question. Alright guys, now we are looking at 6A. The question is coming from conventional syllabus, so I hope that you can write a very good answer because you would have practiced a lot of answers on this particular conventional syllabus, that is Code of Ethics. Okay, every year one question comes on Code of Conduct and Code of Ethics, so I hope you people will practice for the next year as well. So let us read out the question number 6A. In 6A, it is said that for an ethical work culture, there must be code of ethics in place in every organization. Okay, this is one part. Next, to ensure value-based and compliance-based work culture, what suitable measures would you adopt in your workplace? Alright, first let us write the schema, and within the schema we will discuss the structuring of the answer. So in the introduction, I will talk about what is code of ethics and how code of ethics is important in every organization. So this is addressing the first part of the question. Then when it comes to the body, I will talk about the measures. So I will divide the answer into, one is value-based work culture. So my measures will be, one, to how to improve the value-based work culture, and the second is how to improve compliance-based work culture. So this is how I will divide, and finally I will try to conclude by again giving a futuristic or forward-looking view
on what is the advantage of code of ethics in every organization. So overall, this will be the schema. Now, many students in the measures, they would have written taking both together. That is also fine, because in that time constraint, you will not be able to segregate and generate specific points for both separately. But that is completely okay. That is fine in the exam-like conditions. But let us practice how we can do it so that it can help you people structure for the upcoming mains of 2026. All right, now let us start off with the introduction. So in the introduction, you can define what is code of ethics. You can say a code of ethics is a set of principles. Okay, this is very important. A code of ethics is a set of principles that guide conduct within an organization. That guide conduct within an organization, comma, ensuring that decisions and behavior align with organizational values such as integrity, impartiality, transparency, and accountability.
Alright, so this is the introduction. Now I'll add one more paragraph to this definition to create that originality. Look at this. The next paragraph is a code of ethics is meaningful only when translated into lived practice. That is, it should not just be seen as a letter, it should also be implemented in spirit within the organization. So that is what this particular paragraph means. And now let us address the body. As I told you, in the body, first you have to talk about how we will suggest measures for value-based work culture, and then how we will suggest measures for compliance-based work culture. So in the beginning, first I'll give the subheading to ensure value-based work culture. To ensure value-based work culture, I would adopt the following measures. Okay. See, I'm using high because they have asked your workplace. When they ask your workplace, you have to create that originality. You have to bring that you that they have asked within that particular question. That is why, to ensure value-based work culture, I would adopt the following practices or measures. The first one is leading by example. Here I'll say I would avoid preferential treatment. And ensure transparency in meetings. Okay, now don't stop it here. You should always tell why. Okay, that why is always important. So transparency in meetings, this signals to my team that integrity in the organization is non-negotiable. Integrity in the organization is non-negotiable. Look at this. I have told what I would do and why is that important. That way of writing is very, very important in ethics. So this is the first point. Let us move to the second point. The second point is ethics circles. Okay, what is ethics circles? You can say every month I would sit with my teammates. And together discuss ethical dilemmas encountered in work. Okay, now tell why. This helps ethical conduct as the natural way of working in the organization. So this aspect will address why that measure is important. Okay, this is the second one. The third one is reflection diaries. reflection diaries. So here I would say I would encourage my teammates. I would encourage my teammates to maintain what you call as integrity diaries. Integrity diaries, noting ethical challenges they faced and how they were resolved. Okay, now tell why. This practice nurtures self-awareness. As you know, self-awareness is an important component of emotional intelligence, and this writing in a diary or journaling will actually improve our self-awareness. So this is how I would like to ensure value-based work culture in the organization. Okay, next let us go to the second one. Second one is to ensure compliance-based work culture. I would adopt the following measures. Now you can ask, sir, is it necessary to write such long subheadings? Yes, it is. Subheadings act as GPS for the evaluators. So by writing the subheadings explicitly and properly, it will show or guide the evaluator which part of the question you are addressing and where exactly are you changing or transitioning from one part to the other part. So you have to write subheadings clearly, and let it be long subheadings, it doesn't matter. Alright, now here in compliance-based work culture, my measures would be, the first one is transparent processes. So what does it mean? In my office, I would leverage technology to create transparency. This use of technology will reduce human discretions, minimize bias, and ensures all decisions are made objectively. Okay, the second one, see, this is about compliance. So bringing transparency via technology will actually help improve compliance. Okay, the second one is recognition of integrity. Here you can say annual integrity awards would celebrate team members who show probity in their service for the organization. Okay, finally we can conclude. So in the conclusion you can say an ethical workplace is created when values shape behavior and systems reinforce compliance. Okay, so look at this conclusion. Now I am using an ethical workplace because the question is asking about a workplace and its culture. That's why an ethical workplace. Now look at this, two variables, values and compliance. Because I have asked two variables in the question, I am again using two variables, and in one variable I say values shape behavior, and in the second I say systems actually shape the compliance. So that is how I am using the two variables that are given in the question in the conclusion. So this is one of the way how you can conclude in most of the answers in GS, but especially in ethics. Alright guys, so finally after writing down all the questions, now we have come to the last question of the ethics paper of UPSC Mains 2025. If you have come this far, that means you are really sincere and you are really serious about cracking this exam. So I applaud your diligence and your commitment. So let us complete this question also in high energy. So let us read out the question. The question number is 6B. Look at this. India is an emerging economic power of the world as it has recently secured the status of 4th largest economy of the world as per IMF projection. However, this however is important. However, it has been observed that in some sectors, allotted funds remain either underutilized or misutilized. Look at this. This is very important. What specific measures would you recommend for ensuring accountability in this regard to stop leakages and gaining the status of 3rd largest economy of the world in near future? Okay, so here the entire question is revolving around not India's economic growth, but how misutilization and underutilization of public funds is taking place. So that is what you should not neglect, and whenever you are suggesting measures, it should be in conformance with this underutilization and misutilization. Okay, let us see how to structure it. Now let us do the schema. So the schema would be very simple. One, in the introduction, I have to address the first part of the question as I keep telling you. So here, first I will talk about India's economic growth, but also I will mention one paragraph about the challenge. So this is the introduction. Then in the body, you can talk about the measures. Now be careful in the measures when you are telling, you should talk in the realms of funds, because there is misutilization and underutilization. So you have to talk in this context and you have to tell how to ensure accountability. So you should be very careful to attach these words when you are telling about the measures. You cannot tell any measures that come to your mind. You should always tell the measures that is in conformance with this misutilization and underutilization of funds and how to ensure accountability. And finally, in the conclusion, so in the conclusion, you can link economic growth with ethical accountability. Economic growth with ethical accountability. Okay, look at this. I told their ethical workplace. Here I am telling ethical accountability. That is how you should be always smart to take those keywords and turn it into ethical language. That comes with a lot of practice of answer writing. So I hope you will start doing the answer writing from now on. Alright, so you understood the schematic. So let us jump right to it and start writing the answer. So the first, in the introduction, so you can start by telling that India's emergence as the 4th largest economy reflects its rising strength, yet persistent underutilization and misutilization of funds reveal a crisis of probity, accountability and stewardship of public resources. Let us write one more paragraph to connect it to ethics. So look at this. In the next paragraph you will say, misuse of funds is not merely a financial inefficiency. It is a ethical violation. It is a ethical violation of the trust between the state and its citizens. So this is where you are trying to bring that ethical language. So I hope now you are getting the knack of writing language of ethics in GS4 paper. Okay, this is how I've taken an economic concept and I've told that it is not just financial inefficiency, but it is actually an ethical violation of trust between the state and its citizens. The moment I say that, it brings the language of ethics in this particular concept of economy. So I hope you got this. So now let us jump to the body of the question. So here let us start enumerating measures. So here, measures to ensure accountability. So here the first one you can say is probity in public finance. Here you can elaborate by telling strong vigilance mechanisms and stricter enforcements against corruption will create an environment for honesty. Okay, example is integrity audits of schemes like PDS. Integrity audits of schemes like PDS. Okay, the next one, the second one is improving transparency. Transparency builds trust and openness in governance, and makes citizens active participants in tracking the allocation and utilization of public funds. For example, use of public dashboards that track public funds. So this is the second one. The third one is social audits. This measure enhances distributive justice along with financial efficiency by making vulnerable groups participate in tracking the utilization of funds. Okay, so this is the third measure. The fourth one is stewardship. So here you should say public officials must be trained to see themselves as trustees of taxpayer money. For example, training under Mission Karma Yogi instills ethical sensitivity along with competency. Now see, Mission Karma Yogi was a question that was asked in previous year. By understanding and knowing that concept, I am using that concept in this year's question. That is why in ethics, writing the previous year question is always beneficial, because you can always use that content in this year. For example, if you know about Gandhiji's 7 sins, you can use that content. If you know about John Rawls' theory of justice, social justice, you can use the same content. So always understanding and writing the previous year question of ethics paper is very important, because those content can be used in the future exams also. So those preparing for UPSC 2026, make sure that you write all the answers to all the previous year questions of ethics. Okay, anyways, so this is the fourth measure that I would like to suggest. Then the last one, the fifth measure, is integrity of institutions. Here I would like to say empowering institutions such as CAG and parliamentary committees in truest sense, that is in both letter and spirit, will help in strengthening utilization of public funds in real time. So this is how I'd like to bring some ethical language into this concept of economy. So finally, we can conclude So in the conclusion you can say economic growth without ethical accountability is unsustainable. Continue. For India to credibly aspire to be the third largest economy, it must embed the values of probity and justice in financial governance.
Look at this. Again, I'm taking the variables given in the question and playing around with it. We are talking about public funds, utilization of them. That is why financial governance comes into picture. They have used accountability in the question. That's why I'm telling ethical accountability. They have used economic growth. I'm telling again economic growth. So since they have given me two variables, I'm telling without ethical accountability, economic growth is unsustainable. Look at this. I play around with the variables that are given in the question in the conclusion. That is one way of writing very good and impactful conclusion by using the content or variables or keywords given in the question. Alright guys, so I'm happy to tell you that we have successfully written all the questions of the UPSC ethics paper of Mains 2025. And I'm proud of all my students who have written the answers along with me, because only if you have written the answers will you actually realize the art of writing an ethics answer in the language of ethics. Otherwise, whatever you do, you will only listen to the class but you will not be able to implement it. Only if you write answers will you understand how to actually bring the ethical vocabulary, how to use the ethical keywords, and how to actually write in the language of ethics. So I hope you people enjoyed this, and if you have enjoyed this, please like, share and subscribe and leave a comment of how confident you feel in this GS4 ethics paper. Now, as ending remarks, just to conclude or summarize whatever we have discussed up to this point. One, you have understood the changing trend. You have understood the changing trends of ethics. The second, you have understood how you can analyze questions in ethics. Third, you have understood how to bring ethical language in answers. Fourth, you have also understood how to structure answers in ethics. Fifth, you have also understood how to play around with ethical variables given in the question. The sixth, you should also understood how to use ethical keywords. Seventh, you also understood how to write ethically on general issues like economic growth or social media, etc. So these are some of the takeaways for you if you have written all the answers along with me sincerely. Again, I am proud of all of you people, and I hope that you people loved this. And if you have loved this, if you have loved the GS4 paper, and if you love the confidence that you have got after writing all the questions of GS4, the next papers will be even more exciting. And I want you people to be consistent and write all the questions of all the papers, and look at how much confidence you will have in the upcoming mains if you do so. This is an exercise never done before in any part of the country, in any institute. So I am doing this only for the benefit of my students community, and I know that you people will make use of this and you people will emerge successful in the upcoming mains of UPSC 2026. I'll see you again guys. Thank you so much for all the love and support. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope to see all of you commenting in the comment section, and I hope to see that you people are looking at other papers and writing down the answers as well. I'll see you again guys. Thank you so much. Bye.